This should be quite quick. Maybe I'll do this in like several parts, but or like have different videos of this. But this is going to be on the one you received in His own name, that came in His own name. Um, and so I'll just start off with reading what it says, because you need to know the prophecies of the Messiah. Um, and this is just one. This is Deuteronomy 18, verse 15, or starting in verse 15. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken, according to all that thou desiredest of the Lord thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. So he's going to say everything that was desired at Horeb. Um, Verse 17, And the Lord said unto thee, unto me, They have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words, so Jehovah will put his words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So Jehovah, the Father, is going to put his words in this prophet's mouth. And that prophet was the Son of God, the first begotten Son of God. And his name is Yeshua, because he comes in his Father's name. His Father's name is Jehovah. And so, likewise, his Son's name is Yeshua. And then, of course, you could say Yehoshua, or what else do people say? You could say Joshua, because Joshua is just the English translation of his name, from, because I think like Yeshua is like from Aramaic, and then Yehoshua is supposedly like Hebrew or something. But Jesus has no resemblance to um, the Father's name. Um, but anyways, let's continue. Verse 19. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. So, if there comes a prophet um, that comes and speaks some, like, um, so for, or if they're that's the other. So if somebody doesn't listen to this prophet that Jehovah sends, that he puts his words in, um, then he will require it of him, which means that like it won't be good for you if you don't listen to this prophet. That's the nicest way that I could put it. But verse 20, But the prophet which shall speak, or which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, How shall we know the word which the Lord hath spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not or come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, but the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. So, Jehovah is going to put his words in this prophet's mouth, and that is his son, Yeshua, that he's talking about, right? So, what is one of the things that Yeshua said? Well, so this is Matthew 22, starting at verse 34. And I made another video on this before, but it's from Luke, but this is in a different context. Verse 34, But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Yeshua said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. So, you have to ask yourself, what does it mean to love God? Because most of the church today has made it to be, oh, I just love God so much. I just want to give him a big hug. Um, he just feels so warm and cozy inside me. I just love him. And you say that as you love your parents or whatever. You just love them. You want to give them a big hug. Um, you want to whatever. You just love them. But that makes no sense. And even for your parents, like you love them, so you do what they say, right? Um, and so you have to listen to the full instruction of what God said if you love him. In verse 39, and the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And so now with this other commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, you've just made this to like a ridiculous thing of giving somebody a hug or feeding them or I don't know, giving them money, or something like that. All things based off of worldly desires. Um, but that's not what God said. Like, you're presuming what God said by turning this love into more of like a sensual and potentially even in extremes it could be a sexual thing where like at one extreme you might at a lesser extreme you might just like give them a hug or give them a sandwich or whatever, and then at a greater extreme of that love, you instead of just giving them like money or whatever, you give them your body, and I'm sure you know what I mean by that. But that's not what God is talking about. And so you have to go like, because then you're just presuming, you're putting words in the Messiah's mouth. Like you're saying that, oh yeah, when he said love God and love your neighbor, that means, yeah, I'm going to give everybody that I can. I'm going to do whatever I can to them. I'm going to be super nice to them. I'm going to give them a hug. I'm going to, when they're hurt, I'm going to give them a band-aid. And of course, like, don't refrain from those things. But that's not what God said. Like with loving your neighbor as yourself, there's only one place in the Bible where this is mentioned in the law. Only one place that this can be quoting from. So go read it. Like, don't just go like you're. Let's go there. Because you have to read the whole thing. And so, and I'm sure most people know, but when this Bible was first written, like there was no verse separation, there was no chapter separation. So, like, given that, let's just start. A good place that I like to start to read from is Leviticus 19, starting at verse 15, to get a good understanding of what loving your neighbor as yourself really means. So let's just start there. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. So what is righteousness? Well, righteousness is the righteousness of God. So keeping His commandments, and you could read about this all throughout the Bible. So unrighteousness is doing something that's not what God commanded. So this would be like, say, self righteousness, right? Um, if you're judging somebody based off of, oh, you, I don't know what, you you broke my water bottle. I don't know. And then you say that, oh, you're sinning now. Like, no. Like, don't even get mad about those things because it's just, like, you might be upset that your water bottle broke, but you could buy another one. It's not that big of a deal. So let's continue. I'm just going to restart from verse 15. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. But in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor. Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Okay, so hating your brother on, um, like, don't hate your brother, right? That's what it says. Don't hate your brother in your heart. Okay, so what we're going to read is the same thing as that. So if not hating somebody, like, that's the same thing as loving them, right? So thou shalt love thy brother in thine heart, right? Because not hating somebody is essentially you're loving them. So thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am thy Lord. So if you like read all of that and not just read like the very end of seeing that, oh, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, then you understand what the Messiah was quoting. Because loving your neighbor as yourself includes all of that. You don't do any unrighteous judgments. You judge according to God's commandments. Um, you rebuke them so that they don't suffer the consequences of sin. Because if you don't rebuke them, you hate them. And that's what, like, God says. If you hate somebody, then don't rebuke them. I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you would hate them like that. Because this is what godly love is. Humans have created their own love of giving somebody a sandwich or giving them a drink of water. Like, of course, those things are great, right? But you're turning what God gave, what, like, God's holy commandments, into a thing that's decided on flesh and worldly desires. Um, so if you're defining loving your neighbor as yourself by anything worldly, then you're just defining it based off of your own imagination, your own desires, and you're just receiving a Messiah that is speaking in his own name, or speaking in God's name, but not with his words, because you're putting words into that prophet's mouth that God did not speak. So you got to really ponder this. Like, why the whole world is deceived except for the very elect, if it were possible. All these pastors, all these people are telling you that Loving your neighbor is giving them a hug or opening the door for them. That God will bless you for that. But they're not listening to what even God said. They're putting words in the Messiah's mouth that God never spoke, that God never commanded that Messiah to speak. Um, so yeah. So which Messiah have you received? The one of the Bible or the one in your imagination?